Hi, I'm Dean Sage.
And I'm Jack Curvin.
And this is Show Me Your Deck,
a podcast where we explore the intersections of oracles and chakras,
using our original decks to create new insights. Oh man, it's been some time.
Yeah.
A lot's happening. I hope the time that people listen to this, that the effects of the hurricane have subsided and people are able to restart their lives again. There's been a lot of devastation and bad things have happened, and our heart goes out to that whole situation and all those people. And I mean, hurricanes hitting Florida twice within 2 weeks is just insane.
Yeah, I have friends who are moving away from Florida because of it.
I mean, I almost have to. It's kind of like living in a floodplain.
On purpose.
If things are getting worse and storms are getting worse, and we'll continue to do that, like this is going to be an ongoing thing. So yeah, we really appreciate anyone who's doing work to help the first responders, the people that had to stay with the hospitals during the storm. Those are some very, very brave and wonderful people that have dedicated their lives to helping others. And so that's
and also the ones who specialize in rescuing pets.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It's been a lot. Western North Carolina's, there's a couple towns that got completely erased, just gone. They've been wiped off the map. They don't exist anymore. So it's been a rough time, but.
So if you were affected, we very much hope that things are going to turn around and that you'll be able to piece things back together. And for those that are trying to help, make sure that you are supporting organizations that are really, donating that money to the good causes, things like the Red Cross. And there are some, federally backed programs. So just make sure that, you're putting your energy and your money where it will do the most good for the most people.
Mm-hmm. And that might mean that you don't go personally, because if you have to get rescued, then that's not helpful.
Yeah, you've kind of complicated and ruined the situation. So yeah, if that is not your skill and your talent, that's fine. Others have that skill and talent. Find your way to support that skill and talent.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm ready for a setting. I'm ready for a reading. Let's get this.
Let's get it going. Tetrahedron of joy. Oh, deck number 4. We're going to start with a haiku. Let's find out which one we're going with. 33.
Ooh,
so
okay.
Pull that out. Let's see, 33. All right, so this is air, Vishuddha, I say, and how it is affected by metal, orange, I feel. So I say, being affected by I feel. Innocent copper, tarnishing exposure yields mature patina. Innocent copper, tarnishing exposure yields mature patina.
So this is throat chakra meeting our sacral chakra.
Yep, sacral chakra again.
Okay. So we have deep wellspring of emotions, and then the air in your system, the air to pass that information over. And in which direction is this? Which is touching which order?
This is the main chakra would be I say, and how it's affected by I feel. So aqua on top.
So we're focused more on the throat chakra, the expression,
communicating, how that's influenced by the feelings, sensations, emotions, and instincts.
So I find it curious that it's a very passive communication. In this case, it's the patina, which is the outer coating that occurs over time as something ages and grows. And in this case, we find that beautiful and worthy and worthwhile, the growth that's occurring.
Yes. And this intersection is all about expressing yourself, knowing that doing so helps you to mature. That if you never express yourself and never come into contact with other people's ideas, never have to refine what you're thinking and saying, then you don't get better. You have to practice expressing yourself.
So this is very externally focused, even though as you read it, I had a very sense of internal sense, of self examination, of self growth. I find it interesting that the and for you for this intersection, there's a very external element to it. I'm curious, what's the imagery for this one?
If you let me think, this in the book will be the one where there's a bronze statue of a woman who is covered in patina. It's an outside sculpture, metal sculpture that's been exposed to the air and has gone from copper to green to white.
Mm. Mm-hmm. So a translation over time.
Mm-hmm. And it's interesting. I don't know about other people, but when I see patina on houses, for example, or on fences, it gives me a sense of longevity and stability. So when I see homes that have awnings or trimmings that are copper and they've gone that pale blue-green color, it implies that there has been enough stability for the house to stand. And that gives it a sense of, what's the word I'm looking for? It's August.
Mm.
And it has gravitas.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way I perceive patina, at least on copper. On iron, it's just rust.
True. And not every patina is worthwhile. I just keep going to like patina on like China and like pottery and sculpture and that kind of. I think that's where when you said patina, that's where my head kind of went. Even though you mentioned copper specifically, I think I kind of flashed to some of the other ways that time affects objects of permanence. So we've got a permanent object affected by time. I think it's interesting that the air in this case is a change agent, whereas usually, and again, this is your system is unique with emotions being metal. Here, they're cooled emotions that have been shaped and are now affected by what is said. So again, I immediately went internal, but now I very much see how it's external because it's your voice, your air flowing over the emotions of others, flowing over the metal of others and affecting it, creating something that is collaborative. If you left the copper alone in a vacuum, it would stay the copper color. It wouldn't change. Nothing would happen to it because there's no agent of change. There's no creation happening in that moment. Whereas when it's exposed to air and to water and time, it becomes something different. It becomes that growth of patina and it changes. Sometimes, we think we need to unchange it, to reverse the happenings, to take it back to its original. But like you said, there is that sort of beautiful, almost white that occurs after enough time has passed.
I paraphrased the projection a little bit, or the profession a little bit. I profess that I say what I feel, knowing that sharing it will help me to mature. So it's pretty close. Okay. But yeah, that's where it's coming from.
Well, it's a nice foundation for today. The idea of sharing, of saying things that add to maturity of others.
And yourself, because if you never... Let's be a little specific. Let's say that you're in a romantic relationship and you don't say what you feel. And then that relationship falls apart. And then you get into another one, similar situation. And again, you don't ever tell anybody how you feel. You run the risk of never being able to express yourself because you've never practiced doing it. Mm-hmm. So have the courage to say what you feel. And you might be rebuffed. That's fine. That's part of maturing, is not always having people agree with you or Now, sometimes people will criticize you. That's fine too. But you still need the courage and the fortitude to express yourself and how you feel. Specifically said, people can't silence or censor you.
That's interesting. So there's a maturity of the self.
Mm-hmm.
There's
emotion. Yep.
a maturity of knowing what to say, understanding that it affects others, that it has a relationship to others, but can shape the self as well.
Exactly. So it's the maturity of emotions and the maturity of communication and the improvement of self that happens because you were not afraid to be honest.
I like that because there's a sense of honesty of the self that leads to speaking truths. I think in the idea of enlightenment, the idea that, an enlightened being will only speak truth. And the anti-bodhisattva, I think I'm probably mispronouncing that. I apologize. But the idea of someone that speaks truth, which seems harsh, which seems derogatory or something that is challenging, and that honing, that shaping, that maturity brings you to a better state. That sometimes you need to be challenged and shaped through that rather than through simple truths. Something about that kind of rings for me here.
Yeah, so that you can learn to live beyond cliches and platitudes.
Sometimes truth hurts. Sometimes it's necessary to face things that we don't want to face, or open ourselves to things that we don't want to face.
This, in a way, reminds me of the arbor glyph, in that there's the potential for injury, and yet across time, there's the building of poise. So, in my mind, this tarnishing is similar to a tree healing around a wound. Maybe it's my romanticism of history, but I like old stuff. I like seeing that it still exists despite the ravages of time. So I like to see that a person is still honest despite the injuries that come from speaking one's mind.
The statue found in the sewer after 2,000 something years.
Tell me more.
So there was a statue that they just recently found, and it was in a sewer, and I think it was Roman. Don't quote me on that. I only saw it briefly, and it reminded me of like a Roman Nike kind of statue. Well, actually, it wouldn't be Nike in that case. It'd be Victory. But it was just lost to time, but not lost. It stood the test of time, and in a very harsh environment. Not an ideal environment to maintain longevity in.
And that's I wrote these so long ago that sometimes I have to dig for my intention, and I don't always have to find the original intention, but what I'm getting from it right now is the way I admire, for example, statesmen or statespeople who really speak well despite the fact that they receive constant criticism. Regardless of whether you like his politics or not, Barack Obama is a beautiful speaker.
He really does communicate well.
He's a beautiful speaker. And that in the face of lots of criticism. And, you can find good speakers on, whatever side of the aisle you want. That's just the first one that came to my mind.
So there's a communication that happens in speech that's very different than writing. There is tone, pause, intonation, just the very visceral way that it's our first human communication. It's the first thing that really makes us human. Animals communicate with each other through call and response, but the ability to express an internal idea externally and for others to be able to grasp and understand that and internalize it to themselves, that transmission from the internal to the external is amazing. It is I think the heart of what defines humanity and people and us as a species of being is that ability to do that translation. And there is something magical about the people that can do it well, that can really, really shape the ideas and effects of others.
Yeah. Oration is powerful. So it sounds like we're framing this particular reading through the lens of courageous honesty, perhaps?
I like that. Yeah. Courageous honesty.
Saying what's true even when it's difficult.
And even when you know that it's going to have an effect. And I think you use the word tarnish. So some people do, think that the patina is somehow ruining the statue, somehow, changing it for the worse. So sometimes your truths do have a negative effect upon the people hearing them. The air of your movement, of your expression feels bad sometimes to people.
Yep.
But that's what courageous honesty is about, is speaking the truth even when it's hard, even when it will have an effect on others. And I think we talked about this before. This is not criticism.
No.
This is not dragging someone down or belittling them or being mean just to be mean. There's some people that are like, I'm just being honest. That's not what we're talking about.
No, that's not.
If you have to follow up what you said by I'm just being honest, then no.
Then you've been misusing your words.
This is more of a situation where it's truth that needs to be said. I go back to our last episode, and I challenged you in the member segment about not cutting off people just because you're in pain. And
yes,
I think that's just a good example between the two of us, where I felt a need to be honest with you, and it was not something I think that you wanted to hear, but maybe you needed to hear.
Yeah, I needed to hear it. And for context, we recorded that in our time just a little bit ago, same day. I don't know when people will be hearing this, but I already feel better because you said it. And this is the point of having, reasonable conversations with people. They help you mature.
There's also something interesting about the copper's not gone. The copper is still there. It's beneath the patina. The patina almost becomes an armor against the elements. It is, the copper responding to the elements around it and building up a layer that insulates it. And so sometimes courageous honesty is also about helping others create more of an armor, of a defense against the elements, and changing themselves to suit their environment and to be part of the environment. I don't know, that's kind of hanging out in there for me.
Yeah. Well, looking at the power of words, especially the spoken word. All right, I think we're going to go with my deck here like we usually do. Got a little bit of energy behind this card. So we've got the root chakra. So that's nice to have here. This is the source of seeds. You will find peace when you stop searching. Read that again.
You will find peace when you stop searching. So this is the Queen of Pentacles in the tarot. And in my oracle deck, the way that I've kind of formulated the tarot in this case is that the source is the moment in your journey where you realize that all the things that felt external to you, that felt part of something else, are actually just pieces of your own self. And so the source is about realizing that the source of security and safety, which you've sought in other things, really stems from you yourself instead. So this is saying that if you are searching for that peace, that safety, that security, that you're looking in all the wrong directions because it's internal, it's within you, it's not external. I find this very interesting because it's about stillness, and your imagery is the statue in the garden, which is stillness in time, and being rooted and footed to the ground. And while the raging elements are all around it.
Still standing in that truth.
Still standing. Courageously, because they are transformed by the experience. They are not the same. They become something different along the way, but yet they stand still and firm in peace.
Huh. That's such a nice little coupling. I don't really have anything else to add to that. It just seems like it latched onto it very nicely.
Yeah. We usually have more sass. I think this is rather pleasant.
The episode 16 was so sassy that I think we deserve a break. If you haven't heard episode 16, you really do need to hear episode 16. The decks were throwing all sorts of madness.
Just incredible
side
amounts.
eye everywhere.
Incredible amounts. Well, let me pull from my deck again, and let's see if we increase our depth here a little bit. All right, I have another root chakra.
Okay.
This is the 7 of seeds. It says seeds sown with purpose yield a greater harvest.
Okay, that's interesting, because what that implies to me as a first impression is that when you bother to have conversations, this shouldn't just be frivolous wastes of time. The words that you put out there when you're speaking your truth, why bother sharing the ideas if you don't intend for them to continue on in some way, like sprouting seeds, if you will. These words can themselves be the ideas that then continue to grow and live on after you have finished talking to whoever it is or whatever the audience is. But my first impression is that you should be very thoughtful and purposeful with what you say. Now, of course, there's a time to be, funny and relaxed and frivolous and blah, blah, blah. But if your entire identity or brand or habit is just glib, flippant silliness, I mean, that's fine, I suppose, but where's the maturity in that if you don't say anything that's worth a longer conversation?
There's definitely a rootedness that we had 2 cards in a row that went to the root chakra. So we have the second chakra and the sacral chakra and the throat chakra, the 5th chakra. And there was a rootedness, a groundedness to the imagery of the statue. And now we've had the 2 grounded cards kind of come out and say, okay, let's focus on the root. Let's focus on the root. So I think, there's a sense of safety and security that is necessary to stand the test of time and to speak truth with confidence and with the knowledge that it will have an effect, but do that courageously, because sometimes it's hard truth. But in order to do that, so in order for that to be the case, you have to find peace within. It has to come from a place of groundedness. It has to come from a place of peace. The truth that just flows in a moment, a heated moment, going back to your metal, like a molten moment where the emotions are running hot. That's not necessarily courageous. That's not necessarily truth to be told in that moment. Oftentimes, that goes against what are the 3 questions? Is it true? Is it the right time? Is it me? Yeah. What are those better than I do? Say them.
You caught me off guard. Is it actually true? Is now the time to tell it? Are you the person to say it?
Yeah.
Something like that.
I think that's it. So when you're hot and molten and or if your waves for me are roiling and boiling and just all over the place, that's maybe not the time. This is telling you need to get below that. So in order for you to be courageously truthful, you have to get lower. You have to get to a place of peace, because only from peace can truth really be spoken. The 7s are an interesting number in the tarot. The threes, the fives, and the sevens have a kind of a sense of unevenness. The threes usually go towards trios, which, you know, is one of the more stable forms of a relationship to have. But the fives and the sevens tend to be a little bit more about conflict and the interplay of individuals, and oftentimes can have sort of more of a negative meaning. But I like the Seven of Pentacles in this case because often it's the idea of things going in a straight line, and there's almost like a motion to it, a direction to it. Mm-hmm. And so, like when you put seeds in the ground, when you sow them with purpose, when you build them in rows so that they can flourish and grow properly, you know, you get a better harvest. You get more out of your actions. And so, I think finding within you the source of your security, of your safety, knowing that you are grounded and rooted and not operating from a hot emotional state, but from a grounded, peaceful state, then you can put out your courageous truths, but you can sow them with purpose. So you're going to sow them into other individuals, into other people, but you're going to do so purposefully. And that purposefulness is what gives us the bounty of the truth.
And when you say purposeful, I like the word. It also implies to me that something is organized, clear, well-reasoned. The idea itself can stand the test of time. Mm-hmm. If you put out a thought, say something, and it's not tenable, that's fine. This is part of the process of learning. But if you're planting these concepts purposely, that automatically, in my mind, means that they're well considered. Mm-hmm. It's not just the rows that are straight. It's not just the spacing of the seeds that matters. It's that maybe they've already been sprouted before they've been transplanted into the soil. Mm-hmm. Sometimes people will sprout the seeds indoors to give them a fighting chance, and then transport them out into the yard. The
idea of incubation, I think, is what you're leaning on there. Mm-hmm, the idea of time. You know, we talk about time in the longevity of time, but time in the short time, there's changes the air brings even in the short time. There's, you know, the more moist air of a greenhouse is different than the harsh, cold air of the outside. And being able to give the right air at the right time is very important.
The image I have in my head at the moment is a professional debater. I was watching YouTube several days ago, and there was a single person, 19 years old, and he was on the left, and he was sitting inside a circle of 20 people who are on the right. And he was a professional debater, and none of them were. And he by himself won every argument because he was prepared. These 20 people would come at him from all these emotional places saying just nonsense, and he could just, you know, navigate everything because he was prepared. He had considered his opinions and his positions, and here he was at the center of this maelstrom of voices. Mm-hmm. And he was one of the youngest people in the room, and he showed more fortitude and more maturity than any of them. Mm. And it's not just because I happen to agree with him. There were points being made on the other side that could have made sense if there was any reasoning behind them, if there was any purpose, if there's any research or numbers or actual truth. I could have listened to what his adversaries were saying, but this is a good example of knowing your truth and being calm and understanding why you believe what you believe is just as important as believing something. Why do you believe it? And can you discuss it intelligently and maturely and calmly?
There's a sense of firmness in that. I like the idea of it. I like the imagery of being well versed. I like the idea of challenge too that you rose there a second ago, of challenging your firmness, your belief.
Well, you get to test it. I mean, you put out this what sounds like a great idea. Does it stand up in the wind?
Exactly, and that is the test. The test is living it. So it's a truth. You can't just spout it out and leave it. It's not in a sense. It's not just a round of a debate, but can you actually defend it and be shaped by it yourself, such that you live out the truth, and then you're merely just sharing that truth. So I think that we come full circle. We come back to the self. Really, truth is about living your authentic self, your authenticity with yourself, and then you're not doing anything different. You're simply sharing what you are with someone else, and that truth then flows to them and might challenge them. It might bring them into a different place. So yeah, it's interesting to have that idea of challenge here, because again, sevens in the tarot have that sort of sense to them sometimes. But also, I think the direction and there's almost like a speed, like a quickness to the Seven of Pentacles, and there's a rush of wind is kind of what I'm getting out of this, a rush of air, that your words are spoken earnestly and intently.
Before we move on, thinking about seeds and the idea of being mindful and planting your seeds in regular intervals on these straight lines, and that gives them the best chance to have space and air and water and light. This debater at the center of this circle was really doing what you describe in that way. He was very neatly putting his ideas out there. He would make a very provocative statement, and you could see everybody in the room just get really upset. But then he had his points. And when they would come at him, they were like just throwing seeds everywhere. Just everywhere. It's like there was no organization. There was no thoughtfulness. There was no planning. And his seeds were able to just sprout and grow, because he was very, very carefully just weeding. Like one of the advantages to planting in a regular pattern is that exactly what a weed is, because it's not where you planted something. And so just here are all these little sprouting weeds, and he just plucked them right out. Organizing your thoughts is very impressive, because a lot of people don't take the time to do it.
And when it's done properly, it leads to a structure that supports time and passage, that supports emotions and supports the air and the change and the speaking and the interactions. It's a groundedness.
At the end of this particular conversation, there were 3 of his adversaries who were moved by him. And there wasn't a single point that he shifted on. It's not because he was being stubborn. It's because there was no reason to shift. So 3 out of 20, it's better than 0 out of 20. But still, he made more inroads than they did. And it wasn't because of stubbornness, because when they made a point that was valid, he would accept it and then pull it into his arsenal and use it.
Part of, I think, speaking truth courageously is accepting truth courageously.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's a good point.
That sometimes what is true for you needs to be challenged by others, and by sharing yourself, right? If you're operating from your authentic self, sharing yourself with others is a way of challenging yourself, because their response to you might bring you the truth that you need to change parts of yourself. And so it's a constant interaction between you and others and you.
Yep. The conversation is the patina.
Yeah. Well, let's roll some dice.
All right. Let's see where we're going. We're going to the projection. We're going to the professions deck, number 2. Number 10. We just had number 10 come up in the last reading.
We did.
But not in this format. Well, I profess that I feel that only the deserving deserve my love.
Only the deserving deserve my love. Well, I mean that flows very nicely, and so this is the heart and metal, right? This is
Yes, this is metal.
second and fourth chakras.
This is metal. I feel, and how it interacts with wood, I love.
Okay.
Metal and wood, sacrum and heart.
Well, we build into all of this the idea of, time and growth, and out of all of that we have this chance to love. Like, we can't forget the heart. It's the center of the bridge that is us. And while our power comes from the third chakra, I think really our humanity and our self comes from the heart, because that's where we deal with grief and joy, which are two competing forces. And of course, for me, the heart is air, which is going back to the original metaphor what we were talking about. That air's coming from the world around and is shaping and changing and interacting with what's happening. And here we have the idea that where your love goes, it needs to go, intentionally. Say the profession again.
I profess that I feel that only the deserving deserve my love.
Only the deserving.
And, every language has its strengths and weaknesses. And one of the weaknesses in American English vocabulary is our near incapacity to define different kinds of love.
Well, we only have the one word.
So to qualify it, we have to say love of something. Love of family, love of state, love of cats, love of food. We don't have the types of nuance to express love in our language that have existed in others. So when you hear me say something as provocative as I profess that I feel that only the deserving deserve my love, think about what I'm actually saying. Love is a big umbrella term in English. I'm not saying that you disrespect people just because you don't like them. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that love is a powerful emotion. The two most powerful are probably love and fear. And so if you are channeling so much of your energy into someone who is abusing it, neglecting it, ignoring it, hogging it, gobbling it all up, you don't have to keep doing that. They don't deserve that. I'm not saying that they are undeserving of any love from anybody. I'm saying that you specifically do not have to keep filling an empty pit.
A never-ending hole. I think that, we had the groundedness, we had the piece of stopping the search. We have our seeds that are sown with purpose. And now we have another reminder, another message saying that where your love goes should be deserved. And that means that your courageous truth that we spoke about earlier is a form of love. And it need not go everywhere. In fact, it should go to those that deserve it. And I think that's true of your authentic self as well. There's a difference between living authentically and affecting people and sharing your authenticity with other people. And I think that's kind of where the message is parsing this a little bit for us, is that you can live authentically and it will affect other people. The tone, the stride, the way you walk, all these things affect other people. You're not intending to do that necessarily, but it is just an effect of you, and the world has an effect on others, and what you are emanating has an effect on others. And so when you have peace that you're emanating, it can affect others. It can bring peace to them. It can also bring fear when they see something that they desire but don't understand, or something that they can't can't feel for themselves because it's something that hasn't come to them before. So, I mean, you can have all sorts of reactions to your authentic self, and being authentic, I think, can polarize the world around you sometimes, which is why.
And if we're talking about conversations, not every idea is for everybody, and that's okay. Keep speaking to the people who want to hear what you have to say. Now, be careful about echo chambers. It's not what I'm talking about. We very specifically opened with the concept of speaking to people and being able to withstand scrutiny. However, there are some situations where people are just going to be destructive just to do it. You don't have to participate in that.
Well, that's the point, that where you share your authentic self is where you share your vulnerability. Being willing to accept truth when it comes to you, no matter where it comes from, like your debater, that there were truths that he accepted, but he wasn't sharing his authentic self with that group. He was sharing truth and knowledge with that group. That's not his space to be authentically open with others. That's his space to act and live authentically with others.
Yeah. Yep. So where your love goes, your love grows. Hopefully.
I think we're going to choose one more from my deck this time. I'm going to laugh if it's another green card. Green is my color for the root chakra for seeds. It is. It is. It is the Seeker of Seeds, which would be the Page of Pentacles. Bare feet upon empty ground, see what soon can grow.
Read that one again.
Bare feet upon empty ground, see what soon can grow.
Okay. There is a direct connection between flesh and soil. Stepping out of woo-woo for a moment, this is very important because of the way your skin and the other systems in your body become polarized or depolarized by walking on the face of the earth. It is healthy for you to, in safe places, walk barefoot upon the earth. You exchange ions this way. It helps balance the pH of your blood and the rest of your system. So that's a literal way to look at this. But there's also there's kind of a vulnerability there, because when you step barefoot somewhere, you might also step on a sharp rock or a thorn or, what have you. Might be stung by a scorpion for all we know. But we were just talking about vulnerability. And there's a little bit of that's wafting over onto this image as well.
Well, the idea here is the seeker of the elements, right? The seeker of seeds is seeking out peace and safety and security by having, firm ground to be upon. But once you sort of begin that journey in earnest, so you go from living the events of seeds, living the events of earth, and you start trying to imbibe it and make it part of your being, then you have this moment where you have to kind of gather, but you're not yet ready for action. And that's this step, is where you're gathering things unto yourself. You are laying out the scope of the garden. You're letting your feet on the ground inform you of the place that you're in and the things that you are creating, are going to create, but you're not yet taking action. It's that moment of solitude and soliloquy before something occurs, before something becomes. And it's that liminal state right there before. And that's the essence of this card. So I find it very curious. We have 3 roots. we were very rooted. And we also had the emotions, the second chakra, the sacral chakra. So we are very low with these touches, right? So we touched on the throat chakra, we touched on the heart chakra. And there's just this very sort of sense of being on the earth, feeling the safety of the earth, allowing us to do the things that we need to do. And in this case, it comes back to the truth. I think here you are also, vulnerable, living your authentic self. I think it's a moment to turn inward and look at your own, fallow ground and figure out what it is you're growing within you. So in this exchange, in this, courageously speaking the truth, being able to be vulnerable in the right circumstances and ingest the right information, the right truth for yourself, you can relay the garden. I think that's the beauty of the secrets, the beauty of the court cards, is that you go through this journey multiple times. It's not a one and done. So just because your last harvest was grown and reaped and brought in doesn't mean you don't change this year. I go to a vineyard in my mind right now, and they're constantly updating what they do in the vineyard to meet the needs of the grapes, to meet the needs of the things that they're cultivating, and to continue to grow. And every harvest is different, and it's embraced. They embrace the differences in their harvests, and it creates different wine every year. But it always comes back to, okay, now we're coming back to the soil one more time. What are we going to do? How are we going to lay this out? How are we going to work upon it? And then,
this is where nuance comes in.
mm-hmm.
And okay, so same ground, same vines, completely different flavor from year to year because of the weather, because of the pH of the soil. Were there any other stressors? Mm-hmm. Was there too much rain? Not enough? Did they fertilize it more or less? And these are the details in a conversation that allow for there to be other understandings of the same words, of the same truths. It's just nuance. All this is nuance and maturity. Mature vines.
Mature vines, mature statue, mature time, patina.
Patina.
Something.
Because old vine grapes, they slap different. I don't know if you like wine, but I do.
I do.
And an old vine Zinfandel, that's some things. That's some things in that. And it required a lot of time and a lot of consideration and a lot of nuance.
Care, timing, authenticity,
Blending,
openness, all
blending,
these things.
Balancing, all of it.
It's a very active, passive sort of work.
I like that.
You're just waiting for things to grow. You're literally watching the kettle boil.
You're tending it the whole time, but not interfering when you don't need to.
And that's the authenticity. That's exactly, it goes right back to what we were talking about with speaking truth courageously is sometimes not speaking truth.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes remaining silent. Sometimes withholding your air.
Is now the time to say it.
Yes. Will it have a positive effect? Is this person ready to hear it? Are they in a place and time where they can process it?
Hear it from me.
Yes, I go to grief. It's a lot of people go through grief. Almost everyone has. If not, you will, and it's easy to give platitudes at that time because you've gone through your grief. You've come out the other side. You know that it will be better. You know that it changes and it gets better. But then the person that's in it doesn't need to hear that.
No, they're still in it.
That's not what they need at that moment. Mm-mm. So you feel like, let me reassure them. It's going to be okay. That's not the time to say that.
No. You're skipping through the part that they're experiencing. It makes you feel better, but it doesn't necessarily help them.
And same thing with condolences. Like, I wish people just wouldn't, don't. You can say I'm so sorry, for what's going on, and you can say I feel, I have felt, I commiserate with you in this feeling. I remember it. I remember it.
this. If there's anything I can do that you need, let me know.
Yeah, and it's simple acts of service often in that case, because simple things are hard in that case.
Because you want to overreact. You want to spread as much salve over the wound as possible.
But sometimes the wound being raw and open to air is what heals
lets it heal.
Interesting. Oh. Well, thank you everybody for listening. If you don't already know, we have a members only segment that we do every episode where Jack and I talk about what the episode's content and reading meant to us personally. So you can kind of get to hear some of our personal stories and how the reading affects us. You can get that on Apple Podcasts. You can subscribe in the app there. We do have a YouTube. It's Show Your Deck on YouTube. We post the episodes there so you can actually watch and listen and see the beautiful cards that we created that we spent so much time tweaking and putting together. We love them dearly, so we would love for you to see them. Our books and decks are available for sale. You can find all of them at showyourdeck.com. There's some links there which you can see pictures and videos. You can get the Sage Oracle on Kindle Unlimited right now for free. You can also buy it in paperback and hardback, and Jack's book is available in a luscious, wonderful, colorful 7x7 paperback. Yes, and if you understand how numbers and artists work, then you understand how 49 Professions has to be a 7x7 book. Obviously. Jack, where can we find you?
I'm at 49 Haiku, the number 4, the number 9, HAIKU. So the website is 49haiku.com and Instagram is at 49haiku.
And I am Dean Sage Media where I am. So that's deansagemedia.com, at Dean Sage Media on Instagram, a little bit on Threads, and sometimes on X. So we'll just see. We do have an Instagram for the show. It's at Your Deck on Instagram. We'd love for you to follow us. We'll be posting some updates and episodes there. But we'd love to get interaction with all of you, and Instagram's kind of a good platform for that. So please let us know what you think, and we enjoy hearing from you. And we'll say goodbye for now.
Have a lovely day.